All systems go. Clear for liftoff. What's up, everyone? Tyler Tamboline here, aka ToeTagginTambo, back for another edition of Leverage Lane here on the Ship It Nation YouTube station, PGA edition. This week, the Wyndham Championship, and we'll break down all things as usual. We'll go into the chalk build of the week, how you can leverage that, one and done betting segment, the breakdown there, and then of course we'll have our Leverage Lane at the end from a single entry perspective for all you playing less lineups out there. But it's all about the process, not about the picks and plays. Got my man Alex Blickle here with me as always, and Alex, how you doing, my friend? It's a big week ahead. We're excited. We're getting the last regular season event of the PGA season, but some crazy winners. Thor last week, the week where Koiven, the week before where I was at live, and we've seen some pretty fun stuff these last couple of weeks, so it's still interesting.
We have. We're almost like almost exactly a week or a full month, I should say, away from the NFL starting. I think it's a week from today will be a month away. So it's a very exciting time of the season. We have seen week one NFL satellites have been in some PGA lobbies for a couple weeks now. They've also now made their way into the MLB lobbies. So this is just like a really fun DFS time to really be going after it. And I think, you reference kind of lazy weeks a lot. I think this is a lazy time of year where people aren't really, putting their best foot forward in their DFS play. And so if we are doing that, there's a pretty large edge, and
yep.
No better time to have a large edge than when you're trying to get week one tickets.
100%. I think the Saturday streets are the place to be as usual. We talk about it all the time, but I know being a contrarian player this time of year, like we are during DFS and not just playing all the chalk. And that's why this show becomes so important, because that's what it is. Well, we know what people are doing this week. And I love that about golf. Whereas I talk about it all the time in NFL and in NBA and those types of things. You're like, well, the ownership looks like it's going to be this. The contest sims might push something else, and then all of a sudden the ownership is swayed way further than you think. Typically in PGA, we've got a pretty good setup on that, and that's what I think is this week. We saw contrarian players win the lottery last week with Jeremy over at ETR. Shout out to him. And then the Mish, my boy, got the job done too. They chopped it up for $150K each. I had a lot of close calls last week. I know Gim bounced back for the boys last week, so we were on the Doug Gim train again. You can't let those things bother you. You got to get back in. Yep. So it's another fun week ahead. Was there anything else about last week with Thor and sort of how the lineup shook out that you wanted to recap on? I think today is going to be more of a straightforward approach, but anything you wanted to talk about with last week's event before we move on to this one?
I don't think so. Nothing really stood out. One thing I will say, though, is there's a lot of carryover between these two golf courses. So I do think that, and actually not just these two golf courses, but also TPC Twin Cities. These are the biggest difference that the renovation made from a course fit perspective is it took most of the advantage that Bombers had previously had at Detroit Golf Club. So we now have back-to-back weeks with TPC Twin Cities and then last week at Detroit Golf Club on golf courses that really diminish the predictive value of driving distance. Both kind of enhanced the accuracy predictor signal. Certainly TPC Twin Cities did. This is a golf course that really kind of accentuates accuracy off the tee. So this is also a time of year where I think, or at least like a series of events, where recent form probably matters a little bit more than usual because we've had similar tests week after week. It's not like you're going, there's a time in the season where you go from Quail Hollow and Doral, two golf courses where it's like Bomber's Paradise. Everything's about how good you are off the tee. And then you get to a bunch of golf courses like Heritage where that's not the case at all. And so all of a sudden, recent form shouldn't matter a ton. This is a part of the schedule where it really does, because they're being tested in the same way week after week after week. And so the guys who are in form on those golf courses should be in form for this golf course as well.
Yeah, and I love that. You're going to have more on that. Probably get to the course fit and the weather and applying it and bringing it over to some of the options this week and ways that we can leverage the field. So stay tuned for that. If you guys haven't yet done so, make sure to hit that thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. Like they said, football is right around the corner. We got a lot of good people in the chat here. Our man Wins a Lot, our man Gary, Timmy Dubs is in the building. We see, again, the NFL conversation's already happening. Jordan's in here. Shout out to Jordan again. And then Cowboy Mets. I brought it up earlier, but 1986, my fellow 40-year-old friend, I'm assuming, but or close to one, born 86, got to be close. Says favorite show of the week, LFG. So love to see all that. Jason Turner notes. We appreciate all you guys. Want to remind everyone quickly before we get into this, just fast, the Big Guy event is right around the corner. So if you guys haven't yet heard about it or seen it, our friend, the Degenerate 75, who sadly passed away last year after his battle with cancer, he had a GoFundMe that we'd set up, and we wanted to do something special with it and make sure that everybody could come together as one community. This is for the entire DFS community. I know not everybody will be able to make it, but there's ways to get involved. Go to shipitnation.com/the-big-guy-event, or just hit me up at ToeTagginTambo, DM me, Tambo at shipitnation.com, whatever you want to do. The event will be held Friday, August 21st in the evening. It is going to before our true one-of-one, DGen 75. We have the Detroit Ballroom rented out. We've had some of these events in the past. They're always a lot of fun, but this one's open to everybody. It's more like Ship It Nation events. So just so you guys know, everybody is welcome, but it's the Detroit Ballroom, which is the 12th floor of the D Las Vegas Casino and Hotel, the partner of Circa. And so if you want to get in, there's you can get your seat. It comes with drink tickets, appetizers, games, watch party. There's a collectible you can get. If you just want the collectible, it'll be future Big Guy events and things like that. And then you can do donations at the bottom as well if you want to support the cause. If you buy the combo, it's the best deal. But if you guys can make it out, we'd love to have you out there. So just wanted to bring that up first. Alex, as far as getting back to this Wyndham, let's talk about this Force Fit then for a second. You did talk about it and hinted at a little bit there. And I love, have you been watching, by the way, side note, I'm going to go on a quick tangent, but have you watched So You Think You Can Tout by Pete Overzet, the challenge and the events and all the game show kind of on YouTube that he did?
Yeah, I've seen a few of them. Bryant made a comment in the chat, by the way. Your audio is kind of going in and out again. But
could be this mic, and I've been off air for like a week.
Now you're perfect. Yeah.
Yeah. Apologies, guys. Getting back from vacation swing and the Fantasy Golf World Championship, so apologies on that. But I was saying, have you seen the finale was recent, but the So You Think You Can Tout? It's been spoiled already, so I don't mind.
Yeah, I watched a few of the early ones. I haven't watched much lately because I like. As soon as I, really kind of dove into my own Discord and building out the new site, it's like it's the only thing I've been able to do every day. So I haven't watched any of the recent ones, but early on, like it's such a cool concept. So good for Pete to do that. And
yeah, shout out to Pete. It was definitely very entertaining. And as an onlooker, at another site and finding people and looking for new talent and things like that all the time, I think there's definitely going to be something from that. But the A in Alex stands for analytics. And the funniest thing is the guy, Alex Cups, shout out to him. Congrats. He got the job done. Pete was saying that's my quant. And this guy brings like analytical data takes with charisma, good on camera, and he's able to break them down in layman's terms. And the reason I bring that up, and those that have watched us a ton, and we're getting later in the season, so everybody knows what you do and how well you do it. And I'm always super excited to be on with you because of that. But you do the same thing. And it's funny, you're both named Alex. You both do the, kind of the exact same approach. And so I'm excited because for those that don't know, Alex and I also do this for NFL. And I know you've been working in your Discord a ton on NFL behind the scenes, on top of all the stuff you're doing with MLB and pick'ems and golf and splits and you name it. So if you want to talk about that a little bit, but I think the NFL stuff, for those that mentioned in there, it's going to be pretty exciting with the roster construction. Again, just what we focus on is that. Like you can, how did you land on this pick or this play or whatever? So the roster construction can lead you down the path. The picks and plays are a result of the process, but maybe hit on that a little bit, and then I'll get into the next segment.
I think the biggest theme of it is there's so much with DFS where like week to week, we're kind of guessing what's right. We're hoping that the decisions that we're making are really good and are going to lead to wins and all that stuff, but we rarely are able to know that what we're doing is without question a winning strategy. And if we just do this type of thing over and over and over again, we're going to make money in DFS. That's largely what the roster construction analysis that I've done is allowing us to do, where we're able to say, I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that this type of roster construction wins. And if week in, week out, I stick to this formula, I know that, in time, it doesn't mean that every single week we're going to do well. Of course not. But in time, throughout the season, throughout the next 5 NFL seasons, if I continue to do this type of analysis and build lineups accordingly, I'm going to be a profitable NFL DFS player. And that's just like a really exciting thought because NFL DFS can be so difficult at times. But the other aspect of that too is it allows you to play your own convictions, right? Like if the thought is, I have to pick the right team. I have to find the right players and just be better than everybody else at identifying the players that are going to have huge games. It's a really, really hard thing to do and a really intimidating thing to do, especially if you're trying to build one lineup at a time. Whereas if you just know, like, I can play whichever team I feel best about, whatever conviction I have, whatever contrarian running back I like, whatever contrarian stack I like, as long as I build it in the right way, I'm going to have success. Like, that's really, really empowering. And I think it just makes DFS a lot more fun while we're at it.
It also makes it a little bit easier. We always say how much of a struggle it is to sometimes explain the foundation and the basics of it. And I had conversations with some of the reps in Minneapolis when we were talking about that of like, yes, DFS, someone will win $1 million this weekend playing fantasy golf. There's a guy that's here that got in from $5. He won from $5 into a 438 satellite, turned the 438 into the ticket, got the ticket all the way through, and then won like 37,000 across both tournaments. Like, that's a cool story. It doesn't make the game easier to understand or play for the complexities of it. And that is what we try and do. Like you and I talk about this a ton. You just talked about your Discord, but I'll use this as the last spot just to bring this up. But DFSmastermind.com is now live and ready to go. The revamp is done. Alex and I have talked about this a ton. Some cross promotion. Like, this is where you want to learn how to play. And then you could take that foundation and really stack it with everything that Alex is doing over in his Discord. And we'll have more on that in the future. A little tease for you guys. We've got some stuff upcoming. But if you want to learn how to actually play the game, I mean, you get in, it's a one-time payment. You can get in for less than $50 to get started. And you can do in a 9 to 5 shift, if you will, for those working the day-to-day job. I mean, everybody is. It's 9 to 5, 8 hours. You can get in 7 hours or less, these 2 modules. Get the premium podcast feed. You have it forever. You can take notes, circle back, do whatever. And then if you want to upgrade, there's even the 2 payment option, $249 twice, but it's done. It's a one-time option. You can get in and get all the interviews, all the extras, everything that goes with it. You can hit me up if you have any questions, but I think that's key to remember if you want to get the foundations of the game. A lot of people say, like, you know, I learned to play the game differently, and that's what we're trying to talk about right here on this show every week. So you guys tune in for the rest of these and for NFL. Quick programming note on that segue. We won't have a show next week for the BMW Championship. For the FedEx St. Jude. Alex has a special place to be. I'll let him talk about. But for the BMW Championship, we will be back to round out the PGA DFS season of Leverage Lane. And then, of course, we'll get some preview stuff going for NFL. We've got some really fun stuff planned, like I said, so stay tuned. We'll have some wait lists. We'll have some things like that. But, Alex, what do you got going on next week, my friend? And then we'll get into the actual conversation here. This is just instead of the recap this week.
Yeah, just playing the Pennsylvania Open, so hopefully can make some noise there. I haven't been able to play much golf this summer at all. Even like some of the tournaments that I was supposed to play, had a bad ankle sprain, so wasn't able to get on the golf course much. I wasn't able to get through U.S. Open local qualifying. Then I had a tournament in Vermont get canceled because like they had such an extended winter that the golf course just wasn't ready. So I'm coming in playing far less golf than ever before before the Pennsylvania Open. But the last time I played really, really well. So I do feel some confidence. But yeah, I got to go up to Pittsburgh for this one. So just it's going to be too tough to find a time to actually do the Leverage Lane show.
Yeah, and you go, what is it, 2 tee times? You go 1
yeah,
a.m.,
early Monday morning, and then late Tuesday afternoon, and then hopefully I make the cut and play Wednesday to close it out.
What type of number you think you got to get to? You know, from the past history and kind of weather and things like that, but what do you think you got to get to?
Yeah, I don't know because I haven't seen this golf course yet. But from everything that I've heard, it's a really good golf course. I know the greens are going to be running at like 14. They're going to be firm. So it will probably take something like, I don't know, a few under par to be in the mix. When I won at Philly Cricket, I got into a playoff at even par. I don't think it's going to be that tough. There was also winning score was even at Oakmont when it held the Pennsylvania Open. So that's usually like the highest end of the scores. Most of the time, winners 4 under, 6 under, 8 under, something like that. I think last year, I'm trying to remember exactly how low it got. I think it was again like 6 to 8 or something like that. So maybe in that range for the win.
Yeah, I'm sure you'll do the data analytics on that too and get the course fit going for over there. But we wish you the best, my friend. Hopefully it goes well for you. It's always exciting just to have that like as an added thing that most know it about you, but not everybody does. It's like it's not a hobby. It's like something you're actually really good at and something you can do and make some noise with. So hopefully it goes well for you. I'm definitely going to be rooting for you. Talk to me about the course fit for this week. I know you do the analysis going in. How do you see that working for the Wyndham Championship this year? The field, like we're going to get to it in a second, and the way it sets up and the pricing and all, you kind of can do whatever you want. I feel like the 7K range is large and all that. But when you're talking about it from a course fit perspective, talk to me about that. And then anything with the weather you can follow up with as well.
One last thing in the Pennsylvania Open here. Oracle asked if there's live scoring. Yes, there is. Just go to pagolf.org the day of. So Monday, you'll see some like gigantic links for the live scoring. So it's hard to miss there. As far as this golf course goes, I don't see a ton in the weather. One thing I noticed was I was doing some like as part of the splits, I wanted to look to see if soft conditions were a potentially predictive split. They're really not, despite the fact that this is, I think it was like the single highest average amount of rain for the 3 lead-in weeks of any tournament on tour. So they typically have soft conditions. It's just that soft conditions apparently aren't a predictive split in any way, shape, or form. Aaron Rye made a good point as well. He talked about how on Donald Ross courses, we'll talk more about this in a bit, but on Donald Ross courses, the typical green shape is a severe back to front slope. And so that also helps to stop balls coming in with, on a long iron, for example. And so Rye pointed to that as one of the reasons why he might do well on Donald Ross courses, since he doesn't hit the ball very high or with a ton of spin. So that helps him stop the ball in a way that he otherwise can't, on flatter, firmer surfaces. But the course fit this week is actually really straightforward. On any golf course, the dominant factor when we talk course fit is how rewarding is the golf course to driving distance. And this is one of, if not the single least on tour. Driving distance is 70% less predictive than usual this week. And a reminder for just what that means. Like take, I'll use Marco Penge and Eric Cole as the example, because I used these guys in my article earlier for FTN. But 0.41 is Penge's driving distance. So per round, he gains 0.41 strokes through distance alone. Eric Cole is at 0.0. So just a very easy kind of comparison here. That 0.41 stroke difference per round in talent between Penge and Cole is only worth 0.12 strokes here. 0.3 of the skill difference actually carries over here at Sedgefield. So that's a massive, massive course fit factor. And then you also get an increase in the predictive value of driving accuracy. The other thing with distance is even more predictive at the tail end. So how high your floor is in a given week, how high your ceiling is a given week. So essentially, like, short and accurate players have a significantly higher ceiling here at Sedgefield than they do on a typical week. And the longest hitters in the field, I wouldn't necessarily say they have muted ceilings. It's just like you're bringing in, typically if a really long hitter has to compete with 40 guys in the field to win this week, because there are so many guys who are short and otherwise wouldn't have the ceiling to compete with them, now they have to compete with 80 to 100 guys who actually have a real chance to win. So it's just a very different kind of skill profile that can really succeed here. And that's intriguing, because even when the field is on that, I don't think the field totally understands like how impactful course fit can really be.
Absolutely. And one line that you said that's critical, I believe, especially when we talk about the lazy week, and lazy weeks typically mean condensed ownership in spots. Like when we go to build the chalk build, I feel very comfortable we're going to land on the variation that's pretty accurate. So that's the case. When you say 80 to 100 guys can do it because of the decrease in like the driving distance, and like the guys that mashed off the tee are not going to be as powerful as what it normally is in value to this field. It's saying, why is everyone condensing into like the same 10 guys then? And some variation off of those 10 guys. There's 90 they're leaving out of like actually playable dudes. So you have a bigger player pool to work with. And from a DFS perspective, that matters. And we talk about it all the time. I talk about it at DFS Mastermind about like getting your, like, how do you get your player pool down? How do you make that work for you? Building in sets and things like that. So those types of things and foundation pieces are what can help you build up and then be able to get to something where you can find an edge on a week like this. Now, speaking of 80 to 100 guys, how many people are in the PA Open? I got to go back to this for 2 seconds. I got 2 questions. How many people get in this thing?
I think it's probably like 140.
Okay.
120,
and if the best golfer in it is Cam Young 10-4 pricing, where would Alex Blickle be priced at?
Before the year that I won, I probably would have been at like upper sevens, 8,000. In the couple years after, I probably would have gotten up to 95, something like that. Now I would probably say I'm 8,500, but I'm the $8,500 Justin Rose at the Masters, where it's like all the projections won't like me, but you'd only be taking me because you've seen me have success in this tournament before.
Wow. Do you know what's funny about everything you just said there? And only my weird brain can work like this, but do you know who's 8,500 this week?
Who's 8,500 this week?
He's Brooks Koepka, a guy that we know can
hilarious.
do it, a guy that's been there in the past, but will not project well. But, if he showed up, it'd be like, oh, man, there's Brooks Koepka. So you're just as good as a super major winner in Brooks Koepka, my friend. So $8,500, very solid. I had to ask. That works out. We'll get to this stuff later. Our guy Marquee Sports is here. Must be getting close to NFL. That's what that's saying. But shout out to you. And we will talk about Koiven later on, definitely. But anything else you want to talk about when it comes to course fit or weather? If not, let's get to the chalk build of the week.
No, because I think I'll talk more about the splits, which are certainly part of course fit, but as we kind of go into the players. So I don't think there's anything else just like on the top. Oh, actually, there's one more aspect. Approach play is less predictive than usual here, but that comes with the typical caveat that like it's really, really difficult for approach play to have its usual predictive value when accuracy is this much more predictive than usual, because what that's essentially saying is like every single player starts at the same spot on the tee box, right? So there's no other aspect of golf that affects how a player drives the ball. But a player's ability to gain strokes with his irons is somewhat dependent on his ability to give himself opportunities to do so by driving the ball well. So if a very good iron player who isn't driving the ball well is in the trees all day and chipping out, or even just in the rough and doesn't have the ability to control the spin to get the ball close in that way, he doesn't have the chance to actually take advantage of that like major skill set of his. So that's why we see approach play less predictive than usual as a whole. But amongst players who are accurate off the tee, I do still think approach play is super, super predictive here. And so if you can find those players like an Aaron Rai, for example, who are great with his irons and has the driving accuracy to actually be able to take advantage of that skill set, that's like the not really a double-edged sword, but like it has compounding benefits where you can really get the most out of a player.
I also had a note in my stuff. That's a good point there, because like for Showdown at this tournament, obviously we're talking all things DFS and we just throw these tidbits in as we go along. But for Showdown, it's like if someone is like a lot of the secondary guys where it's like everyone will go to the guy with the best approach in round two and be like, okay, I got it. And that's fine. They can lose if they're gaining 2.5 on approach and they lose 0.75, they're still really going to gain a ton and probably have birdie opportunities and make it happen. But there's a lot of guys that you can find that out from once we get a little bit more info. And if it's everyone sort of who's accurate is getting into the fairway is giving themselves a chance. And then those playing good on approach, you can sort of tail that as the weekend goes on. But again, people like to go just to the top 5 guys and be like, oh, I built the lineup with all the best dudes. And like, they might not have that good a day in the next round, but you got the secondary group where it's like they were putting some stuff together, few good shots here and there. And other guys that had like one bad shot, but the rest of their stuff was pretty dialed in. It's like, oh man, they're going to have opportunities tomorrow. So keep that in mind when you're playing Showdown this week. It's a really fun tournament. I got to be at this event the year Willie Z won it, and that was incredible down the stretch, but it's a super hot course, like all the time. Like the boys are sweating out there. So it's pretty crazy. Like Sepp Straka was in the mix that year and everything, but people that play good in the beginning typically continue on playing well. Like you either got it or you don't at this course. It's not one to mess around with. So keep that in mind when you're looking at Showdown. And if you're building for your lineups for the classic slate, like Alex said, you can always include that stuff as well. I'm going to go to the Stone 2 on shipitnation.com. Keep in mind, it is the rough draft. But Alex, where do you want to start for the chalk build? We've got it all here. We can build it in the lineup hand builder. Obviously, Cam Young popping a little bit, but I think it also matters what you're doing with like the value plays down below. I know Sung Jae can get some love. There's some other guys down here too, but how do you think the chalk build looks this week? What's your thoughts?
I think it starts with Cam. It's worth noting, like off the top, for most of the season, we've had 2 different types of events. Either Scotty's in the field, in which case we see number one, like a massive break at the top when it comes to pricing. So crazy separation in pricing. And then we also see the crazy separation in projections that Scotty Scheffler has versus the field. Or we've seen events like this one, feels like this, where there isn't a ton of separation at the top from a pricing perspective, like this week, 10-4 to 10-1 to 9-5. Like that's nothing crazy. But there is this week a quite a bit of separation in projections. When you look around the industry, typically you're going to see Cam Young 7, 10, 12 points ahead of the second highest projected player. So you get the projection separation without the pricing separation. You also get like a lower top end price than we're accustomed to seeing. Like a lot of time, even in this type of field, we'd see 10-7, 11-1, something like that for the most expensive guy. It's just really easy to fit him. So I'm expecting huge ownership on Cam Young, the type of ownership that we saw a lot of last year on Scotty Scheffler.
Yeah, I'm seeing 30 plus. I know we haven't quite got there on our stuff yet, but it looks like that's coming. So I think it'll hit guys like Koiven a little bit. And it's just the projection gap is too big to make up. When people have $300, they're not thinking about Koiven. Now, listen, at the Fantasy Golf World Championship, Koiven got steamed up in a similar spot somehow, but he was also like 91 or 9,200. Like it was a different range as opposed to being up above that 10K threshold. I really do want to build the chalk lineup, but I want to answer this quick for Bryant before he heads out. It says heading to a meeting. Just curious if you guys have any guys who play well above their baseline on Bermuda. I don't know if you will have this. I'm not expecting you to, but I'm saying, do you even care?
I'll answer this in both ways. I have the data on this, and the data says we should not care about this. And to be clear, this doesn't mean that there aren't players who are better on Bermuda than on other grass types and who will continue to be better on Bermuda than other grass types. What it instead says is that we do not have the ability to separate those few players with real signal from the large collection of players who will have good Bermuda splits purely out of randomness, and those good Bermuda splits will not continue into the future. So that's what it means for it to be not predictive. And I've made this point on the show with Pat a few times, and I think here as well with you, Tambo. But one of the reasons why grass splits are so unpredictive in golf is just because of the way the schedule works on tour, where you get like the Florida swing, you get the California swing, you get pockets of the schedule where you're playing similar grass types week in, week out. And so particularly like with putting splits, especially if you go to the Florida swing where your alignment is out of whack on the greens and you putt poorly for 4 consecutive weeks, not because you're bad on Bermuda, but because your alignment stinks, you're going to have bad Bermuda putting splits for the next like 5 years, no matter what you do in those other Bermuda events. It's just that powerful. The sample size is that small that these like specific pockets can just really, really overpower the data. And consequently, you just get way too much small sample variance in these splits, and they're just not predictive at all.
Yeah, I got so many thoughts, but I won't give them all. I just because it's just not worth it. But I was glad your stuff agreed, and I was gonna steal the Pete Overzet line. Said that's my quant. My guy comes through with the data in my favor. For what usually I'm like hoping it's going my way and what I want to say, and then Alex backs it up. This one worked out in my favor because he said we've got it, but it also doesn't signal it. So many things you said that were accurate, and like just how I felt about it. And then the other thing is like from a skill set lineup, I've seen people talking about I'm just gonna take all guys that are good on Bermuda. It's like maybe they are, and maybe their baseline says this. Oh, that's all good stuff. I get it. I'm saying, but like, if you're doing that, you're still trying to line up 6 great putters on this week in their 2 days that make sure they get through and make the cut, and then they continue it over the weekend and all that. If it's that easy, I don't care how good a sports bettor you're. Like the books will still take your 6-man make the cut parlays if that's what you want to fire off on all day. And if you really just had that and all you need to do is putt well enough to make a cut, you could fire a bunch of money on that. And now you don't have to worry about the top heavy or the exact 6 right or all. You could just do that. So a skill build lineup around something like this is also tricky for me when people say that. And I know when I'm getting a text on Wednesday morning about one and done from my dad saying, I kind of like Harmon this week, but he can't really putt good on Bermuda. I'm like, it tells me everything I need to know about that situation, because I definitely like Brian Harmon this week, and I'm not concerned about how he putts on Bermuda, because to me, that just won't be the reason ever that it will fall back on. I like your alignment example. Somebody could just be off for a bit, and that on a swing, and it affects them because of that, because the Florida swing or whatever it might be, or they're bad on POA because their Cali swing didn't go well this year, and it could have been something else completely. So I love that call there also.
It also reminds me
Go
It
ahead.
also reminds me of just the conversation we'll have this conversation again when we talk more about some of the splits this week. But the other thing that I'd say here is like whenever you're using splits, so even, I'm sure there are people out there who aren't convinced yet that they shouldn't be using Bermuda grass type splits. So to those people, I would just say make sure you're using them in just a directional way. And so what I mean by that is like find 6 players who project well, they check all the boxes anyway, and the fact that they are quote unquote good on Bermuda is just a bonus. You're not taking someone who projects poorly because the split works in their favor. He's already a good play. If Bermuda happens to be predictive, you just get that bonus, and it's a cherry on top. So if you're going to use splits like grass type, that's the way to do it.
Yeah, no, I love that call. It's not like this or this; it's this and this, and you get that setup of it. So,
we just got another question that is like this is my favorite one to talk about this week. If wanting to play well was predictive of success, how would anybody ever play poorly?
right.
Like motivation. It's one thing when you're talking about, an NBA game where there are 5 guys on the court, and if one guy is like super motivated to make the other team pay and look silly, and they want to go out and usually they take 15 shots a game and they want to take 30 shots a game, they can, right? They can go out there and they can have more volume than usual. It's not like somebody who needs to do really well in the FedEx Cup can go out and play 100 holes this week instead of 72. Motivation just doesn't have any effect whatsoever on golf performance. And honestly, like if anything, it's weird to me that we talk so much about pressure in golf and people are so quick to talk about guys who like can't get it done under pressure. And then all of a sudden when they come up with the pressure of like needing to play really well to make the FedEx Cup playoffs, I'm surprised that the narrative isn't, oh, he's got to do well this week, but he sucks under pressure, so I'm going to fade him. It's always the only narrative we hear here is like, oh, he's got to play well, so I'm going to play him this week. And
It's always only outside the line. They never talk about the guy that just that they would be passing. Those guys are good. They're good enough because they're inside the line. It's like, no, they can fall out this week if this happens, and no one talks about them either. That's the other thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a great point. It confuses me every year, but we see it, and I think like just anytime you're thinking about playing a narrative, just ask yourself like, what is it that I'm actually asking? And here you're asking, does wanting to play well under this type of pressure make it more likely that he's going to do so? Does it actually change, his motivation for the week compared to what his motivation was at the Heritage or the Waste Management Phoenix Open? No, they wanted to play well those weeks too. A lot of the time, guys want to play well and they can't play well because they're struggling, and this week is no different.
Yeah, and to be fair, I got to give my man Sites 501 a little credit because he's a veteran around here. Says, but how much is the public going to look at this to make the playoff stuff? I agree with Alex fully on everything he said. I would have said it the same way, but at least Sites was asking about what people actually do with it. I think the DFS community plays less into this than they do stuff like Bermuda putting splits and like certain other factors, as opposed to like this does get talked about, to Scooter's point, on all the PGA. They have to make their season end exciting. And it's like the last week, even though they do a horrible job of it with the camera crew, they've got a little bit better the last couple of years, but like of actually following it, they don't usually do a great job, but they kind of get into it near the end of the round 4 of like, okay, we kind of, here's this shot means this, and here's their position now. But kind of like the cut line, they're pretty bad with actually predicting what it's going to be. So you have a follow-up. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'd also say like what we don't see the public do is go play every single guy from like 71st through 80th in the FedEx Cup. But what we do typically see is 1 or 2 of those guys are going to get steamed and end up being more popular than what ownership projections around the industry say. So maybe that's Meisner, maybe it's Keegan, maybe it's Kiefer, maybe it's Koiven, who's right on the edge, right? But like obviously people who are playing Koiven are doing so mostly because the guy looks like an absolute superstar already, not because they think he needs that extra motivation. But somebody in this range, maybe it's Matt Wallace at 80 or Davis Thompson at 81 or Suber at 82. Somebody in this range is going to come in like 5 percentage points more popular than people expected for this reason, because they just get like obsessed with this thought of, oh, he really needs it this week, so I think he's going to get it done.
Yep. They really needed it. They only really needed this week, though. They didn't really need it all season long, like you said earlier. That's my always thing. The reason they're on the outside is because they weren't good enough to get on the inside yet.
Yeah.
And maybe they do, maybe they don't, but they're trying every week. I can assure you that. So, all right, where do you want to go next with this? I've seen a little bit of love for Rio. I've seen some Ben Coles. I've seen some Sung Jae. They're both at 7,700. I've seen Aaron Rai fits nicely into this at 8,800. I know he looks quite popular for the 8K range. Meisner, who you mentioned earlier. Maybe people do love Doug Gim, and they're with you and I on the guy that sort of had to go back to him in certain spots. But what else do you see popping into the common build here as we build this out?
I think the next place to go, this isn't necessarily like the order in which people will build lineups, but there's a collection of guys in the upper sevens that I think all have a chance to be 20 or more % owned in single entries. Doug Gim, 78, Ben Coles, 77, Sung Jae, 77. I've got them all like basically 20% exactly in single entries. So I think at least two of those guys are probably in the common build. You can even put in all three and then see what's left.
If I put in all three, which I don't think is crazy here, I really think Rai is just the guy that fits a lot of it. Like if you build a balanced build with Tom Kim, you could fit Aaron Rai. If you build you could do anything you want pretty much with Aaron Rai. I'm not saying he's going to get extremely steamed, but I do see him like 15 to 20 being realistic, and in the 8K range, that kind of does pop. And then it also leaves you in the range of the 76, 75. Again, there's so many guys this week, so you can leave a couple $100, no problem. We've talked about this in the past. It's like, I don't care if you like Rasmus or Smalley or Wallace or Bez or JT Poston. I've heard a lot of love for. Like, if you built something like that, maybe Chris Kirk's your guy. I don't know. I'm just saying, like, do you feel like that's kind of how people are building somewhere in this vicinity? Or maybe it's Bud Cauley. I'm not sure. But we only talk about leaving a little bit. Like, again, you don't have to go crazy. You've done the data on this. But, like, let's say it's even Rio. You have $300 left. And that's to say you could also get now Aaron Rai to Ben Griffin, for example, but somewhere in these builds, like maybe we got the 4v4 is what I'm feeling here.
Yes, I completely agree. I think Rai is probably that guy in like the upper eights that everyone gravitates to. Down here, Cauley, Hisatsune, both I think have a chance to be quite popular. Jordan Smith should get some. Poston should get some. So I think we kind of nailed it here. I think the second most popular type of build then would just take. Like, you could do two things. Number one, you could get rid of one of those 7K guys and go low where there isn't a popular guy. It's just that there are so many guys who are, below 7,300. Call it that. They're going to be lineups that have like one guy. Pat's favorite guy was like Davis Chatfield at 63. He's certainly not going to be popular, but is the build where someone takes one chance so that they can get a third guy like in the Aaron Rai range. So maybe it's Rai and Alex Fitzpatrick after Cam Young. That will be popular. And then the final build will be you come down from Cam Young to get 3 9K guys, something like that, where maybe it's, Hideki, Gerard, Rai as the start. And then you can do something very similar to what we have here already. So that's the sort of, I think, variations. But I would also say, like, we've made this point a bunch in the last 2 weeks because we keep getting this pricing. When the most expensive guy is $10,000, 400, there's just not a whole lot that you can do from a roster construction standpoint that's going to make you different because all the roster constructions are like right there, right? So you can't really get away from the popular construction build. You have to do it through the players you're using. Yeah,
I think that's a different. You said this last time and I agree with it, but now actually I'm going to change just one thing in my opinion that I would say, like, we're probably both saying the same thing differently, but I think like you can't do much from a roster composition. You can't do like you could do the Cam Young Koiven, and yes, you'll be different, but you'll also need to really push down low. Can that get there? Absolutely. You don't need much leverage on that composition versus the field because not many people are going to have it because it's bad. That's like overall, it's probably bad. Anything can be good. The result can be good, but the process can be bad. But from a construction perspective, this is where I think it gets people a little bit confused is like, if no one's playing a weather angle this week, but you found 6 a.m. guys that you like, well, your construction is different, even though your composition is similar. And that's where we do so well pairing together. Like I said, with the DFSmastermind.com, you get the foundation of like that thought, but then I can take your data and your splits and say like, well, actually I found this as well. These guys all have these good splits. and they fit this, and 5 out of 6 are already in this wave. And Alex and I have talked a ton all season long on PGA DFS leverage lane of like, if you're already going 5 guys in that alley, why not go 6? Oh, but it leaves $300 on the table. Well, that still fits what Alex is talking about, sort of 49.7 and up. Like, wow, I've put it all together. Does it mean it will work? No, but there's almost no care in the world beyond you are picking the good guys that fit the splits of like, that's why they became your plays. I didn't sit back and be like, well, I need to have this guy and I need to have this guy. I thought about construction and then applied it. Composition, very similar to what everybody else is doing. Construction, different. Seems like they're the same thing, but they're slightly different. So I think that's kind of my angle. One note I'll say is just this lineup that you brought up. I definitely think people are doing this. I was on so Spencer put out the King of the Draft, right? And he's doing this thing all season long, the 64 bracket. I was in I'm down to the Sweet 16 against PGA Tout. John, awesome dude. We put together our lineups. He's got Ben Griffin winning this week. So he had Ben Griffin, but he also had Davis Chatfield and Cam Young. I have Aaron Rai and Sung Jae Im on my build. It's 1v1. Like you can't take the same dudes or anything. So it's like I pick one, he picks two, vice versa type thing, a snake back and forth. Davis Chatfield's not going to project the best, but I saw him live at the 3M just a couple weeks ago. Dude hits it fine. Like, I mean, obviously very talented. So if he gets there, even though the median is 10 off, that's where I think also people get confused. This is not NBA. This 88 for Cam Young, that could be 40 and he somehow misses the cut. Sounds crazy, but it's possible. Very unlikely. I get it. But say, if he does though, you're talking 40 or less, probably 45 or less. If there's some scoring out there, if he gets there all the way, that's 120 to 130 to whatever the number is. So it's like, that's where people confuse it. Like 10 is not mattering at all in this. And I think this would be the build you were talking about, because this is where you can kind of get to like a Cam Young, Griffin, and Rye. And all you got to do is take a shot on Davis Chatfield and you still land on Sungjae and Coles. Like that's pretty good lineup. If people will say, if Chatfield comes through and then this thing will be 5 or 6 with Cam Young, like riding the cut line down the stretch or something, that's typically how this goes. But do you have any other thoughts on just that perspective before we go into the how to leverage it?
Yeah, I mean, you made an awesome point, kind of separating composition from construction. Honestly, when I said construction, like I was talking about the composition. The way that I'll wrap a bow on this conversation is, whenever we talk about deviating from a construction perspective and not just the players that you play, what we're getting at, like the concept that we're pointing to, is this concept of lower conditional ownership, lower combinatorial ownership on 2 players, where you can play a guy at 15% and another guy at 15%, and that be a unique combination of players. And so when we're talking about deviating from a composition perspective, what we're talking about, like a lot of the time this year, we've said, the 8K range is just totally overlooked this week. Essentially what that means is there are so many guys playing the 9K range and so many playing the 7K range that when people get to the 8K range, they're picking between players. So if you take 2 of those guys, no one else has that combination. Everyone else has just picked between the guys that you have. And so you get that unique combination. It's the same thing that you just talked about by saying, okay, we don't have a way to do that from a composition standpoint, but we can through a wave stack when no one else is wave stacking. So we can still find that like unique combination of players, because so few people are going to have all 6 guys in one wave or 5 of 6 in one wave. So that's what we're getting at. Whenever we talk about being unique with our roster construction, that's what we're pointing to. We're talking about getting unique combinations of players who they're not necessarily low owned. Sometimes it's hard to find really low owned guys who have a high probability of success, but we can find low owned combinations of players who are both likely to succeed.
Yeah. Can't stress it enough. That's the importance of this game. And that's, again, it takes experience. You're not just going to like read a book or watch a module or jump into Discord and figure it all out, but you have to start somewhere and at some point. And for me, it's always been about like being able to get a personal trainer. They can definitely teach me a lot more about nutrition and lifting weights and proper form and ways to do things and get better. Like, so I would pay for that. If I want to get good at golf, I can keep hitting the course and just having fun with the boys, or I can actually go out and get lessons and then try and really have fun with the boys, because it's a lot more fun when you're having fun and hitting good shots. Yeah. So it's like, there's always that. And that's the thing about DFS. It always feels better when you're getting more shots on goal, if you will, like you're getting more opportunities. And that's what we're trying to help you, get into here and understand it a little bit better. But it's, it's a grand scheme overview, my favorite line to say, but it's like, that's really what we're looking at. all the other stuff is in the weeds, and you got to get in those weeds to be able to find this stuff. But yeah, this is another way people will build this week. What are some of the ways you're thinking just right off the top? Like I mentioned it earlier, I don't know if you think of this one. You do still have 7,300 left and change per player if you did do the double stud build, but that also makes me think people won't shy away from it as much as I might think. I don't think it'll be the popular build, but because it's so possible, the other tricky for me is that it does land you in the common build this week is like 3 7K guys plus, because even the Chatfield build only had 2, but that took a Chatfield. If someone had went with a higher, a lower 7K guy instead of him, you still could have moved things around and dropped Griffin down to like Meisner or something and maybe made it work. So that's my point of 3 7K guys is going to be popular, but we have enough this week to play at all different ranges of ownership and possibilities and combinations that you can still do it. No problem. It's just, I would look at it from that perspective. But what are some other ways you can think this week are out there to leverage the chalk build?
The one that comes to mind, first of all, I agree with all your points there on the 7K range, but the first one that comes to my mind is the ownership up top is massive. Cam Young, I've got it 48% in single entries. I don't know if that's going to come down, and honestly might even go up with the final update tonight. We'll see. Koivu around 25%, Hideki a little bit over 30%. That's a ton of lineups that are starting with either Cam, Koivu, or Hideki. What if you start your lineup with like Gerard and Tom Kim or JT and Ben Griffin, something like that? So to me, that's the first one that comes to mind, is just a lower starting point where you can still then use, it's not like those guys are contrarian, right? But as the first guy in, they probably are contrarian. So maybe you get a unique combination of 3 if you go like Gerard, Griffin, and Keegan Bradley or something like that. So that's the first one that comes to my mind.
Yeah, and I look at stuff like this too, but like just real quick, I'm going to do the chalk version of this after the fact. I just want to see because it leaves you around 7,850. But let's just say we could still get a guy like, maybe it comes down to Meisner in a second, but I just want to see the Sung J. Coles version. And then there's somebody at 7,200 that, you mentioned Kiefer earlier, Suber's there, like whoever people end up playing, Denny McCarthy, Billy Horschel. I know you hurt some feelings, I think, last week, but just noting that, I'm just going to plug in, who'd you say earlier? Kiefer. Yep. It's like getting 25 points. Again, you get away with it. You could do it totally. It's golf. I'm not saying that the median's everything. I'm just saying I'd be looking for a way to target this. This to me is like not that much. You're putting yourself in the same corner as everyone else here by just separating here. In a single entry, higher dollar, smaller field, this could be enough. You've dropped from almost 100% total ownership. It's not just about total, by the way, like Alex talks about, but just to note it, like you've dropped almost 20% in total ownership, but you also have a 2%er, nobody over 20 maybe. Things like there's other ways that you can look at it. But I think, like, do you have a thought around, okay, you start with, who's the other one you said? JT Griffin, let's say. I think you mentioned. Mm-hmm. And then you're off the beaten path with JT alone against the guys around him. Does he have double digits? Sure. But we talk about some of the guys around him having, potentially 30 plus in single entry. So there's that. And then you're going with Ben Griffin next, and that's fine. He's got a little bit of ownership. But do you have any thought on like where you go next when people are building out their single entry? Do you stay off those popular plays because you're already off the beaten path, or do you try and just tighten it up from there? What's your thoughts around that?
Yeah, I think it depends on obviously, like, for one thing, it depends slate to slate, but for this specific slate, I think it mostly just depends on who you actually like. Where's your conviction? Is your conviction on Doug Gim, Sung J Im, and Ben Coles as being by far the best plays in the 7K range? If it is, okay, maybe you go with 2 of them and now just make sure you have 1 additional separator or something like that. If instead you say, I think that Gim, Im, and Coles are solid plays this week, but I don't think they're better than Alex Smalley at 5% or Blades Brown at 10% or Alex Noren at 5%, then you have no incentive to add all that ownership to the lineup. So then you can just go off the beaten path. So I think that's the number one way I would answer that is like, you're not getting different from this point just for the sake of getting different. But if you like more contrarian players, I have no issue going to them because I don't think that the chalk this week is like significantly more likely to succeed than a lot of the contrarian options around them.
I think, yeah, I'd look at it that way completely. And I would also like flip this exact setup where it's like, if you it's what you said about the conviction. If you truly think that like these are just bad prices on these guys and they should be so much more, and like, yeah, you get there's going to be ownership attached, this puts you with 8,900. And you say, okay, now you look at it and say, well, I don't think I want to add more chalk in Aaron Rye. I'm saying the upper 7K range is good chalk. And again, teach your own. Some of that's nuts. That's donkey chalk. I'll flip it in a second. But if that's what you truly think, then this is where I think you could say, okay, I'm going to look up and see now. I don't want to continue to pile chalk into this lineup. I am going to look at what does Justin Thomas do for me. I'm kind of indifferent up top, but I don't want to play the same guys everyone else is. Now that I've got Justin Thomas and Ryan Gerard, can I get away with a Mac Meisner who's going to get a little bit? It looks like way more people are on Keegan or on Rye, and way more people are on these 7K guys. Well, I'm with them on the 7K guys. But now that I already have Gerard and JT with a JT start, and I don't have Cam Young, Koiven, Hideki, Rye, Fitzpatrick, any of the low 7K guys, you know what? I can click Mac Meisner in there, and I'm 417. I'm only 12 points off. I'm way lower on I'm 10% lower still on the total ownership. I have some guys that are sort of right there. It's a little bit more mediocre, like when it comes to the mid-range on ownership, but it's more about who you're not playing. And like Ryan Gerard should come down too, in my opinion. Like I think Tom Kim will be higher. So these are rough draft ownership numbers, but just noting it, when you're not playing any of these three, and you're not playing Tom Kim, and you're not playing Griffin, and you're not playing Rye, and you're not playing Fitzpatrick, and again, field size, contest selection, all that's going to matter. But just to show it's where your conviction is. On the flip side of that, it's what we said. If you're like, I don't care what anyone says, it's Cam Young time. Well, you have 7,900. What do most people do? Doug Gam, Sung Jae, Cole, everything we showed you off the top. It might be where you have to say, okay, let me go down here. Some of the guys I like that nobody's talking about this week, just using an example, is like, I'm not going away from Suber. I'm not going away from McCarthy. I'm going to try Billy Ho again. Well, now you have 9,000. You've got unique enough here that you could go, I think you could fit like Rye Griffin pretty much and leave money on the table. But realistically, this could also be where you say, okay, Gerard probably does come down some. And, Rye fits in similarly. It's a little bit lower on the projection. I just picked random guys down there. But again, this is a prime example to show you, even at the similar 88, like 89% was, while you do have Cam Young, you've got three guys here in single digit already. Gerard probably comes down, like I mentioned to you earlier. So it's really like Young, Rye, not playing that upper 7K range. I'm giving Rye the credit. I'm sticking with my guy Cam Young up top, and then I'm piling in a bunch of guys below 7% down below. That can work in your favor as well. Anything else you want to add when it comes from that perspective? I'm just using examples. These aren't builds I would play, but just noting it from like, what you can see stylistically of what you can build when you're doing it that way.
Yeah, I don't really have any notes on the on the lineup thoughts that you had there, but I will say, as I look at the ownerships, I actually don't think Gerard's going to go down. I think it's more so that just like all your ownerships up top kind of need to go up, because there's just not enough salary owned in what you currently have projected, I would guess. So like basically, as I go through like what I've got for single entry, Cam 48, Koiven 24, Hideki 32, JT 20, Gerard 25, Tom Kim 19, Ben Griffin 16. Like there's so much room for people to build lineups with multiple of those guys that I think you're just going to see higher ownerships across the board up top.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think it's also, to your point, and what you're talking about directly is single entry, where we are going to see that, and that's going to change. And that's why, you should know that for the game that you're playing. Alex clearly does, and that's important that he's bringing it up for you guys to take advantage of that, is that if that's the case, and it is, that's the good thing about PGA DFS and ownership, we won't get it all exactly right, but we know that concept is definitely correct. And what we're going to see this week, that tells you something about the middle, right? That tells you that it can't be the same. Now, in large field, we often see a little bit different because, if Scotty's 40%, and this week could be Cam Young 40% in single entry, he could still be 31 in the lottery. And that's because more people went like the mid-range or the balance build or whatever it might be. And that's just because there's so many lineups to average it across. In the higher dollar, smaller fields, people will typically say, I'm not going to shy away from Cam Young. I'll look for ways to get different there. But that means now we know that Aaron Rye still fits into those. But that means anybody that you see like I'm just making up examples here, but like a Harmon, a Spieth, a Noren, a Blades Brown, guys like that, they could all be a little bit more overlooked because if people are going with that Cam Young, quote unquote, safety up top, they could also be saying, I'm going to be fine with the Aaron Rye. I'm going to stick more to these projections and go down from there and then figure it out from that point. So I think that's important to note as well. And that's why contest selection and knowing the tournaments that you're playing in are so important. But I don't have too much else. I do want to ask one last question, though, just on this. I'm going to use McNeely and lump him in because we know Griffin is going to get love. We know Rye. We know some secondary on guys like Fitz, Thompson, and Meisner. But what do you think about like this, like Noren up to McNeely range of the guys that aren't being talked about? Because there is McNeely, Keegan Bradley, Brennan, Koepka, English, Harmon, Spieth, Mitchell, Noren. They're all capable in a field like this, just who actually shows up. So do you have any thoughts on, as we usually talk about, the 8K range going a little bit overlooked? And look, I get Rise getting the love and stuff, but my point being, most lineups we've seen, especially the chalk builds, have one 8K guy.
The one guy in this range that I really don't know where to put him from an ownership perspective is Harris English, because around the industry, he projects really well. But in terms of just like all the psychological factors that make people click on somebody, like everything's working against Harris English right now. So he could be 8% owned. He could be 20% owned. I won't be surprised with either. I just really don't know what to do with him. Outside of that, Meiser's going to get some ownership. I think Davis Thompson will get some ownership. Alex Fitzpatrick and Aaron Rye will definitely get ownership. But a lot of these 8K guys, as you just said, are going to be low owned. I can't imagine much going to McNeely, Keegan, Brennan, Brooks, Harmon, Spieth, Keith, and Noren. Like all those guys should be under 10%, I would say. Maybe one or two could get to 10, 12, something like that. But all these guys should be held in check. And to your point, like they're very capable. I think all of them are solid plays. I don't think this is the type of week where we want to say, okay, well, I'm just going to hammer that range to get 3 or 4 of them. Because I think that there are other very good plays that are pretty much covered from an ownership perspective elsewhere. But like adding 1 or 2 of those guys to any lineup, I do think makes quite a bit of sense.
Yeah, and I wonder too, like again, just the final version, but like a balanced build where if you go like a Tom Kim, Ben Griffin, but then you mentioned like, I'm not doing this, but just like a Keith Spieth. We talked about, they rhyme. I'm just making this up, but it's like now most people will look at like a 77. Like, again, you don't have to go to Coles or Im or Gim. You could just say, I could actually get a third 8K guy in there and then a low 7K guy and still end up with something pretty decent if these are the types of guys that fit your mold. I'm just giving the example of where the balanced build that skips the 10K guys or the upper guys like Hideki and those and even Gerard, etc. And then it could still skip Rye, and then it could still skip the upper 7K range. And you could almost skip those zones. So it is a little bit different composition, but it's also like playing the guys that you like for whatever reason they fit within there. So find a angle or a threshold you want to hit with and go that route. And I think something like that is fine as well. If you do find a build like that, it could be interesting also. Any other final thoughts when it comes to leveraging the chalk build this week? If not, we can get into the betting breakdown and the one and done segment.
Yeah, let's go betting breakdown, one and done.
Betting breakdown, what do you got this week? I know one that you got, the number did drop since you bet it, and it was 55 to 1. But which one do you want to go with? Maybe roll one out there this week.
Who moved?
Tom Kim.
Okay. Let me take a look at where both of them are at right now.
I think Tom Kim went to 45 3 places from 55.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah, he went from 33 is the baseline down to 28. Let's see where Aaron Rye went. Rye's at 30 for his baseline. So I don't know what the 1/5 each way for 3 spots has him at right now, but I can talk about both of these guys. Like I think for one thing, both of them are extreme course fits where, you know, they are the 2 shortest guys at 8K or above in this field. And they're on a golf course where driving distance is probably diminished more than like any other on tour. So that's a huge point in their favor. They project really well. They have really, really high win odds. And part of that is they also have the 2 highest contention performance scores in this entire field. So actually not in the entire field, but like in the entire field of 7.5K and above or something like that, guys who have pretty decent win equity. So I just really like both of them. I think they both have a really good chance to win. And I'm going to talk more about splits when I get to my leverage lane. But I will say ahead of time, Aaron Rai has really, really good splits this week. He's been outstanding on Donald Ross courses. He's been outstanding on golf courses that are more accuracy dependent than distance dependent.
Yeah, interesting point you made there too. I think it's so cool just with the contention performance scores is like, everyone has different win equity for guys and the way they math it out and their formulas and all of that. But it's like, I don't think that is baked in because that's like a new data thing. First of all, you invented it. So it's like, that's just like your own thing. But second of all, and some will say what they want to say about it. But my point being, it's like, it's got pretty good sample sizes on a lot of it. And the data is strong. Like there's some signal there for sure. More than noise, in my opinion. And it's like, that's not something that's baked in. And also every site is already different with that because like, I don't know, use an example. Like what makes McNeely more likely to win than, double the win equity of Rye. Like Rye's a freaking major winner. Like this is what we're talking about. So it's like, again, not bad on our side. Like it's all derived from a similar formula. It's done quite well. I'm just saying it's the idea of when every site comes out with different things like that. And then you bake in, that's part of the reason he has that good score. It's like, so that even adds to it. Now he already projects better than Mav for less and will be more owned because of that, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I'm saying when you're adding that type of stuff in, and if you're looking at the betting markets, it matters that much more. We're in the betting breakdown. So I think that's a key component for you to have that added in. And it's kind of also too, I know from your splits and your other data that it's a bonus. It's you're not doing it just because he has a good contention performance score. It's like everything lines up for Rye. A lot of things look good on the splits that you're looking at. And then there's a contest. So that cherry on top we talked about earlier of like the Bermuda stuff. It's like, well, if Rye is in contention, like when we took Billy Horschel at 500-1 that week or whatever, and it didn't work out. But the point was like, people weren't understanding. It's like, it's not because we think he's going to win. It's like, if he gets into the mix, he's got a chance to pull it off. And that's what we've seen in the data. So we're going to roll with that. We thought we had it at the 3M a couple of weeks. So we had the opportunity. Like he just has to go and post a number on Sunday. That's all you can ask for. Waking up Sunday morning with a long odds bet like that. So I think that's important to remember, but it's just a note I wanted to add with CPS that I don't think it's baked in.
Yeah, it's a weird one because like what CPS is doing is it's more directly measuring what a lot of people I think indirectly include into their outright betting and what sportsbooks are probably indirectly including in their pricing of outrights where certainly there are people who their model is pointing to Shane Lowry, but in their minds they say, but can Shane Lowry actually win? No. In this case, the CPS is right in line with that. The CPS says Shane Lowry is awful when he's in contention, but there are other players for whom the way that people like the impression that people have of a player when in contention does not actually match how he's played in contention. Tommy Fleetwood, I think, is a good example of that, where Fleetwood, it's not that he's great in contention, but he's nowhere near as bad as you would expect from somebody who's come so close so often. Like he's also gotten unlucky where he's played well in contention, and somebody else who was 2 strokes behind him shot like the round of their life to go beat Tommy by 1 or something like that. So it's just a more direct measurement, but the application, like you can really see it. So for example, you brought up Mav McNeely. McNeely in my sim has a 14.3% chance of a top 10 finish. Aaron Rai, 15.9%. So they are very similar in how likely they are to give you a top 10. Rai's at 3.2% to win. Mav is at 0.4% because Mav has one of the absolute worst contention performance scores. I think only Doug Gim is worse when in contention. So yeah, like it's hugely impactful the closer you get to a winning outcome. And it also has DFS implications there, right? Like Maverick McNeely can still be a very good low-owned DFS play because if he's 9% owned and gives you an 8th place finish, that's quite good. But when you're betting it outright, you need him to actually cross the finish line and get the win to make it a good bet.
Yeah, also too, like you said, again, it's not baked in, so I like it's in your data as an additional added piece is because you think about Mav McNeely goes to bed Saturday night in 2nd place, very much in contention. And he's got 20+ position placement points to start the day because he's in second place, solo, let's call it. And like, okay, now he's into the mix. Can it go his way? Absolutely. We talked about it earlier about like chokers and chasers and whatever, like all these different factors. But I'm just saying, if he does not come through and the CPS stands out and works against him, that 20, not only is it's because of the bogeys or whatever the mistakes are made along the way, or even just all pars when others are scoring. So he's not scoring and he's losing those 20 points slowly but surely as he drops down the board. And again, you talk about from a different perspective, like that for his low ownership in an eighth, how much that's valuable. I'm just giving another example of it where he actually is in contention and people are like, woo, I got this guy. He's a bit lower owned. Yeah. I got this. You lose those points quickly if that happens, and it adds up.
Yeah, just for some added context here, I used Data Golf's pressure tool to look at the last, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. The last 8 times McNeely has been 5th or better entering the final round. He has lost strokes to his expectation in all 8. He went from 2nd to 13th, 4th to T3, T1 to the win at the RSM when he was 1.07 strokes below his expectations. Just no one up top played well. 3rd to T3, 4th to T9, 5th to T12, 5th to T8. Those are his last 8 times of contention. So yeah, when he's been there, like, it's not just that he's not getting the job done. It's that he's playing well below his own expectation. And when we talk about like, okay, when you're in contention, do you get a win? 8 rounds is a small sample. When we change the like result that we're looking at to from whether he won or not to how well he played versus his own expectation, all of a sudden we're dramatically increasing the effect of that sample. And so it's been a really, really predictive tool. And like basically event after event, the final round, like the story the final round told could have been predicted by the contention performance score ahead of time. Last week was one of those exceptions where ahead of the round, though, like I even put in my Discord, hey, the top 2 guys have strong contention performance scores, but their baselines are not good. So the fact that they've outplayed their own baseline when in contention doesn't mean that we should expect them to go shoot 3-4 under today. Like they still might not be that good, and that's what happened. And it allowed Thor Bjornsson to make such a charge from way behind.
Yeah, it's definitely good stuff. If you don't have any access to that or you're not paying attention to it yet, you should be. I think it's like definitely something that's new, refreshing, not baked in yet to the standard stuff that's out there. So that's going to be important moving forward as well. And Alex, excited for all the other stuff that you're bringing, especially when it comes to NFL or just around the corner. But the PGA stuff has been awesome. One and done. Who do we got left? What's the plan here? We just got to just bomb it away. Like I know most people, if you're out of it, you just can't play the popular guys. So you could be out of it completely.
What did we do last week? I don't even remember. Do you remember who we ended up with last week?
I can't remember now, but
yeah, I'm not sure. I would say we have both Aaron Rye and Tom Kim available. We probably want to take one of those 2 guys.
Yeah. I think like the bigger thing is like for somebody that's out of it, you want to be looking down the board. Like if you're not in the mix, just taking the same guys everybody else. Yes, the money's not huge this week. You want to collect what you can. And I'm sorry, the money's solid, but I'm saying like it's more about how you fit on the board. So what I'm trying to say is if you're way behind, you're not really going to pick up much if you go with the same guy that everybody else has. Most people know this by now. But if you're up the board, I think you need to be thinking about that with the playoffs just around the corner and everything like that, because that's going to matter. You need to stay positioned. You need to stay live because the real deal is going to start next week with the what is it next week? The FedEx St. Jude or whatever. So
yeah,
keep that in mind.
Yeah. The only thing I'll add there is we are easily at the point of the season where you can kind of like map out the rest of the year. And so just make sure you have enough guys for the playoffs that you know you want to use. So like, let's say you only have 2 elite players left and Cam Young is one of them. You probably don't want to use him this week because you want to make sure you're using him in a higher purse event. If you have 4 elite guys left and Cam Young is one of them, you can use Cam this week because even if other people have him, like number one, a lot of the people who are ahead of you probably had him for one of his wins. And second of all, this is a lower purse event. And so you're not going to be able to catch and pass that many people anyway. You have to do that in the next 2 weeks. So just keep that in mind as well.
For sure. All right. Anything else that you want to talk about, my friend? Otherwise, we can get to our leverage lane. Do you have a lane selected?
I'm just confused. Someone asked Knapp. I don't think he's playing this week. So I
no,
don't
he's
know
not
what
even
that question is.
Yeah, I ignored it. My guy, Timmy Dubs, is coming off a long shift, I'm assuming, maybe an overnight, but there is no nap in the field. Maybe you should take a nap, Timmy, and get collected, buddy. Get ready to go. We got a big week ahead, my friend, but hope to talk to you soon, Timmy. Let's talk to Alex about his leverage lane for the week. Let's talk about from a single entry perspective. What are you thinking for this week?
I'm going to lean into splits. And do you have time here for me to kind of go into the methodology behind them and why I think they're really important?
Yeah, I got nothing. Good to go.
Cool. So this actually is born a little bit from a thought that I had with baseball and just MLB, both props and DraftKings play, which was essentially like, I knew that there were pitchers who were more sensitive to the matchup than others, where, there are some guys who they're pretty much the same pitcher each and every start. And if they're playing against a bad offense, they're going to do well. If they're playing against a good offense, they're going to do poorly more often than not. And then there are other pitchers who, like, their A game is really good. And the opponent, the quality of the opponent doesn't matter as much as, does this guy have his A game or does he have his D game that day? And I wanted to then apply that to golf and say, well, okay, well, this, like, all the course fit stuff that I do treats every player as equally course fit sensitive as the next. But surely there are players who are more course fit sensitive than others. And so a lot of what the splits are trying to do is capture exactly that. Who is more course fit sensitive and who is less course fit sensitive than what the model is showing. And so, for example, everybody knows that Brian Harman is not long off the tee. Everybody knows that Brian Harman is generally pretty accurate off the tee. If he's more course fit sensitive than most, then he's going to show up with really good splits for his baseline on accuracy dependent golf courses. Sure enough, that's exactly what we see. His splits this week are far and away like the most extreme that I've seen from anybody. So for context, I'll use boom rate and blow up rate as kind of the definition here, where a boom round is you're gaining 3.3 strokes or more versus the field, and a blow up is you're losing 1.7 or more to the field. I use these cutoffs because they create very similar boom and blow up rates for the better players in the field. Harman typically, just his baseline, has a 15% boom rate and a 17% blow up rate. In 148 rounds, so this is a huge sample on accuracy-dependent golf courses, defining accuracy-dependent as courses where distance is less predictive than usual, accuracy is more dependent than usual. Harman has a 28% boom rate and a 12% blow-up rate. And the next question is, okay, well, what caliber player typically booms that much more often than they blow up? The answer is nobody in this field. Cam Young has the highest baseline boom rate in this field at only 23%. Within this split, Harman's at 28%. Only 3 players have a blow-up rate as good as Harman's 12%. So he becomes a truly elite player on this type of golf course. And there are other splits that I'm looking at this week, like Donald Ross courses, where Aaron Rye also really stands out. And Rye was actually asked about this, like, what is it about Donald Ross courses that really allow him to fit them and play well? His major championship win this season at Aronimink is on a Donald Ross course. Rye made a really cool point, which is, I don't hit the ball high. I don't spin the ball much. It's hard for me to stop the ball on greens from time to time, but Donald Ross courses tilt back to front. So they help me stop the ball, especially on longer approach shots, which means his accuracy and his ability to hit the ball where he wants has an even larger benefit to him here, because he can then stop the ball where it's landing. And so he has even more control than he usually does, and it just fits his game that much more. I also think there's an element of Ross courses are typically accuracy dependent golf courses, certainly like this one is, and now like Detroit is as well. So we saw that at Aronimink too. And just like Harman, although to a lesser degree, Aaron Rye has also really outperformed his own expectations, his own baseline on accuracy-dependent golf courses. So leaning into splits, Harman, Rye, and a handful of others is really going to be kind of at the forefront of my focus this week.
And you can find those splits at Alex's Discord. He'll bring it up at the end. I'll let you go through it all then, but I will talk about my leverage lane first. It's going to be a commitment to what we talked about earlier. I talked about the difference between construction and composition. And this is just inside the mind. One of the things that I talk about a ton over at DFS Mastermind is like how I think. And this would definitely be how my mind works. It doesn't mean it's right, but it's certainly an interesting way to look at it. But when you look at this week, Cam Young, Aaron Rye, Tom Kim, Ben Coles, Alex Fitzpatrick, Sungjae Im, Mac Meisner, Bud Cauley, all the guys that we talked about that fit the chalk build, they all play AM PM this week. And I'm going to run a complete opposite of that. I have a ton of guys that I like in the PM AM. I'm going to go after I don't care what the composition is, but my construction is going to be PM AM. Avoid all of those, not because I think they're bad plays. They'll be in portfolio. They'll be, I'm talking about the $200 single entry. I'm going to try and attack it from that perspective. People know I always love a good PM AM. I think there's something about just being able to see how the course is playing, go out and play it. And when there's not much wind or anything different anyway, kind of playing the same thing. And then I also like about going out that next morning, fresh off a good round, ready to rock and roll, saying, look, if they're playing good already, they're going to want to play good in the morning, probably getting their best sleep. It doesn't mean it's going to work out, I'm saying, but then you get to go out and play the course and set the tone, and you don't have to be like chasing a number or any pressure down the stretch or anything like that. So I do like that perspective for this week. And when I get the chalk build lining up perfectly, all I'm hoping is there's 2 or 3 chalk bombs and a bunch of those lineups are now 4 or 6s. I at least give myself a chance. And there's great plays in the PM that are also popular. You know, Koivin's there. Hideki is there. Ben Griffin, who we talked about, is there. And, you know, the other side is there's a lot of guys in the AM that are popular for the same lineup, but it gets me a little bit different. And that's where people will say like, oh, you didn't really get that far off the beaten path. All your guys were 10 or 12%. You didn't even have a single digit guy. I know, but I didn't play a single guy from the AM set where everybody is up there, and there's guys that are in the 30s and 40s in some of these tournaments. So PM-AM split is going to be my way with no weather talk at all, just for reasoning of construction versus composition.
You did this in one of the first events of the year, I remember, and you had a lineup full of 6 like fairly chalky guys and won a bunch of tickets with it. And I made a note to myself, like because I didn't even notice that you did that until we did Leverage Lane the following week. And so I went back through the contest you were in. And I was looking like, well, you know, did he win a 1v1 versus somebody to win that ticket? And the answer was no. Like, even though you had 6 popular guys, I think the closest anyone in the top 10 was to you was like a 3v3 off of your lineup. And so, yeah, it's what we talk about, like coming to fruition. What you did gave you lower combinatorial ownerships, even though you had all, you know, they weren't all chalky players. There just wasn't anyone that I otherwise would have called a separator. The separator in the lineup was just the composition of it.
Yeah, the separator was the construction of playing a side. And it was actually Torrey Pines. I played 6 South North. Everyone was playing the guys on the North course. And I know like it can go either way. You can have a hot round on the North, play the tougher South and die. And in the sense of golf terms, you could the other way, you could flip it. You could play a good round, grind it out on the South, and then be like, whoo, I can breathe the North course tomorrow and it's decent weather. Like that's, again, I don't know how golfers think. Nobody does. That's why listening just for picks and plays doesn't always help you. That's why Alex talking about playing the splits can work. Because if it's guys that fit the splits, they can go together. It's not just Bermuda putting splits where it's like they all need to putt good at the same time. That could be a bonus on top, but I talk about a ton. DFS is how, not who. If you guys go to dfsmastermind.com and want to check it out, doing a ton with this right now. I'm teasing it because Alex and I actually have an upcoming video that we're going to be recording, and then something beyond that I'm teasing for sure. We'll get to that later on, but we are going to be recording on Friday. There will be a new video that goes in. If you go to dfsmastermind.com, you can see some of the videos for free. You can see all the options to get in. You can see over 200 testimonials of what people are actually saying, and just a sneak peek behind the scenes. If you go to this is the breakdown of getting in behind the scenes. It's like YouTube meets Netflix for DFS. If you want to look up single entry, and you type in single, all the courses with single entry are in there. If you're looking at just the main modules, the less than $50 one-time cost to get in, it covers secrets of satellites, qualifiers. It talks about optimizer benefits, player pool creation. Then if in the part 2, it's a little bit more advanced, but you get roster construction and lineup selection, things that people don't talk about a lot. The Sims explain single entry strategy, playing showdown, all the lessons I've learned over my many years of playing DFS. It's just a jump start to get in and get ahead. Of course, if you guys want the data, you can go to shipitnation.com. We had it up here earlier. The Stone 2.0, everything that's included with that. And then if you go to, let me see if I can share this tab for a second. The promo at the top, it's $49. The rest of golf and leading into football will be there. And then we have some big NFL news and some company news and that coming soon. So lots of stuff going on over at Ship It Nation. Alex, what do you got going on over at blickanalytics.com for those that don't know?
Yeah, I was going to say the easiest place to find everything now is blickanalytics.com. You won't subscribe there, but it'll make the subscription process a lot more straightforward for people, which I'm very, very thankful for. And as a reminder, prices are going to go up once the NFL season starts, since ownership and projections and GPP scores are now in my Discord on blickanalytics.com for the first time. But if you get in August, so before September, anytime in August, you'll be locked into that price forever. And you can use promo code leverage for 10% off forever on top of that. So it's a great time. Get in for the FedEx Cup playoffs and lock that fantastic price in for the entire NFL season and beyond.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun, man. We got, like I said, we got next week at the FedEx St. Jude. That's the show we're going to miss. And then we've got, the next week is the BMW Championship will be our final PGA one. But like I said, we're recording a Mastermind course before then for members over there. And then we also have NFL previews and stuff coming up around the corner. Going to talk some construction data, make sure people know that this is the show to watch during NFL as well. We talk about it a ton and we are tooting our own horn, but we have to tell you like it is. A lot of shows come out super early because there is more clicks, and speaking of analytics, you get the bigger numbers and the higher YouTube money and all these different factors, but we want to come out when it's most valuable to you so that you can use this stuff to play your game, to get your own process, to find your way around. If you like what we do, you can find us at Ship It Nation, DFS Mastermind, Blick Analytics, all of that. That's going to do it for this week, guys. We appreciate you. I do got to shout out Timmy Dubs. We gave him a hard time. He's my boy, so I don't mind, but he said, I'm talking about the guy you played last week. And I said, yes, makes sense now. Too sharp. I do believe that is who we played last week. So he's a avid watcher and fan and helpful guy just to give us that information. So we certainly appreciate you, Timmy. Good luck to you this week. Always grinding in the DFS streets. That's going to do it for this one, guys. For Alex and for myself, ToeTagginTambo, good luck in your contest this week, and let's ship it.